Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to our Open Up Live talk show. My name is Dipesh, and I'm the social media coordinator at Voice of Man 360. Voice of Man 360 is a nonprofit organization founded in 2020 and is based in Toronto, Canada. Voice of Man 360 was born out of seeing a need for um, helping boys and men's life challenges, providing help and support, and overcoming many problems that are faced by boys and men in today's society. We're part of International Men's Day, and it's been serving for 21 years and 90 countries around the world. International Men's Day follows six pillars, which is the overall well-being of boys and men. And we follow in the same footsteps of International Men's Day. Now, we might ask, why open up? Because we men do not open up our hearts and willing to share our, emotions, feelings, and problems with anyone. When we keep our emotional challenges within ourselves for a longer time, at some point they explode and they do affect our health in many ways. This is why we want to create an open space, a safe space, and allow an individual to share their life journey through our platform. We aim to create awareness about the life challenges, struggles, overcoming ups and downs that our boys and men go through in their lives. There are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups in sharing their life journey. All walks of life can participate. Our goal is to make a positive impact on someone's life through this program. Our Open Up show is on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We bring in an individual to each show and let them share their life experiences with you. Before I introduce our special guest for today, I would like to go through our disclaimer. We would like to remind you that Voice of Men through 60's mission is always delivered with good faith toward peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's episode are those of our speakers and do not represent Voice of Men through 60. Our organization engages in discussion forums to offer inspiration and create awareness of the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing any medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend that you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have any questions or concerns about today's episode or any Voice of Men through 60 content, please email us at info@voiceofmen360.org. Today's speaker is Ryan Zeitz. He's a comedian, a mental health advocate, and a certified peer support worker who facilitates various groups. He also teaches a stand-up comedy for mental health class at CAMH, and he covers ethics in comedy and writing techniques. He used to run a mental health team comedy show called Mental Health, which is a good pun, with net proceeds supporting the CAMH Foundation. And yeah, welcome Ryan to the Open Up Show. Thank you for joining us and being willing to share your life journey. And yeah, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? Thanks for
I'm
having
doing,
me.
yeah, no, I'm doing good. Looking forward to get things rolling.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, let's just get right into the meat of it. So yeah, what got you interested in the stand-up comedy and the work you're doing today?
I mean, my journey to get into stand-up comedy was like it was born from my struggles with mental health. I this was back in 2019 after a long winter. I was in whitewater rafting school. That was fueled by a man. I have bipolar disorder, so I was a little manic. Went to school for outdoor adventure, and then had to drop out of school due to declining mental health. And it was like a 4 month depressive episode,
Mm-hmm.
and I was living at home, and this Netflix special came out called Comedians of the World,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, there was this one comedian. His name was Ivan Decker, and it was just the most amazing 30-minute comedy special I've ever seen in my life. It was
Mm-hmm.
the first time that I had, laughed or just expressed any joy in months. And my family took notice of that, and my dad suggested that we go take a comedy class. So we went to Second City and we took Stand Up One, and it's about a 8 week program. And by the end of it, I had rebuilt so much confidence and started doing things again. And ever since then, I mean, I've been doing just a bajillion shows, like way too many shows. Spent
Mm-hmm.
way too much time every single open mic all the time.
Well, that's amazing, man. And yeah, no, that's one of the things they talk about in mental health is like comedy and humor is like one of the best ways to deal with it, you know. And it's also inspirational that despite being through a lot of stuff, you're helping out and you're making um, contributions and impacting positive impact to the community, right? And in a good way, in a stand-up comedy, right? Um, Now, depending on what you or you might like everyone's different comfort level in sharing, right? So, do you remember anything like from your childhood, for example, that could have that you think impacted you in different ways? So, like one thing for me is like immigration, for example, right? Like when I immigrated to Canada, that had a big impact for me. Um, and like culture back home is so much different than culture over here, and just social norms and stuff like that, right? So yeah, would you say you remember any childhood events?
For sure, yeah. I mean, and like I'm an open book in terms of comfort with sharing. I get in front of crowds of people all the time and share the most intimate details of my life through my comedy. So there's no holds barred here. If anything, you'll think I'm oversharing. Uh, as far as childhood goes, I'll be honest with you. My recollection, my memory, I have pretty poor memory just from. I mean, one thing that's not talked about enough about depression is that one of the major symptoms of depression is memory loss.
Hmm.
People have short-term memory problems because of it, and because I've experienced so many bouts of bipolar depression in my life, my memories aren't great. I also have ADHD, which also makes memory difficult. And then if that wasn't bad enough, I was actually hospitalized at CAMH a couple of years ago and had electroconvulsive therapy. The primary side effect is also memory loss. But but to, but to answer the question about memories from childhood, I mean one of the most pivotal things was that my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was around 13, and that was a very tumultuous time for the family, and really kind of you know we all kind of joined forces, and I mean by the end of it, like I mean she was so amazing through all of it to the point where like sometimes we even forgot that she had cancer.
Hmm.
But it was definitely like I remember the day that they told us. My dad called us down for a family meeting, which we were not a family meeting type of family. That's
Yeah.
not what we did. It was like, oh, like who died? Like the last time we had a family meeting, my great grandmother had died,
Yeah.
and they broke the news to us, and it was like it didn't even feel real at the time.
Hmm.
And yeah, but I think it ultimately led to a lot, like a much deeper family bonding and such, and we all just yeah built a lot of empathy, got really close. Trying to think of anything else super pivotal from childhood, but yeah, like I said, yeah, the memory loss is not
Yeah.
not the best. I'm like I don't even remember what I had for breakfast literally 30 minutes before this interview.
Yeah, no worries. Now, same thing happens to me sometimes. It's like when I'm taking my vitamins or my protein, right? I'm like, okay, hold on, did I take it or should I take it again? And then yeah, I know what you mean. No, it's all good now, and I appreciate sharing that because like I think a lot of times, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of times in a lot of families, only in times of crisis or trauma, like that's what brings family close, right? And but I think that kind of communication should exist in families anyways, right? But yeah, I can totally relate to that, Um, and if you and again, if it's okay with you, can you share some memories of like your father-son relationship? Like, what did you learn from your dad, and how did it impact your life today?
100%. Yeah, I mean, my dad is my best friend.
Mhm.
And I think that's so important, to have that strong father son bond, especially because that doesn't always necessarily exist
Yeah.
uh, in a lot of father son relationships. But yeah, I would say my dad is literally my best friend. We do so many things together. I mean, we he used to coach my soccer team. I was he used to remind me that I was a pylon at soccer too. I wasn't particularly good at soccer, and he still reminds me every once in a while. Even now, I'm 29. He's like, "Hey, when you were 6, you really sucked at soccer, bud." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." Uh, but he helped coach some of my baseball teams. He was always around because he's a salesman, works primarily from home, so he was literally always at home when when I was growing up through school, and that was also like just a really fun treat that also not everybody get has the privilege of having access to just have your dad around all the time. And I mean, like I said earlier at the beginning, he's the one who got me into comedy. Like he brought me out of my shell and said, "Hey, let's go take this stand up comedy class." Because I know back like 20 years ago, he used to do a lot of open mics and stuff, and was very interested in comedy. He says he's told me that one of his biggest regrets was not being able to pursue that, because by the time he found out he loved it,
Hmm.
I was already bored. My sister was already on the way, and
Hmm.
it's not necessarily the most the most practical
Yeah.
career path,
Oh yeah.
especially with the financial aspect of the Canadian comedy industry.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think you're traveling all the time too, right? Like
Oh
different
God, yeah.
like that, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I'm bouncing around. I probably get extra work because I have a car, so people know. Oh, Ryan can drive down to Bowmanville for sure. We'll give him a spot here. Oh, he's from Richmond Hill. Yeah, he can get all the way to London, Ontario. Yeah, he's got a car. He could do that.
yeah. No, and that's amazing that like your father pushed you into doing stand-up comedy, because I think putting yourself out there, it takes a lot of courage, right? And I think that's like the role of a father, right? If you look at like, psychology, just growing up, I think a father is, the one that pushes their children to, face life challenges. And yeah, I think that's what, fatherhood's all about. And that's what, the upbringing of boys and men, it does impact the relationship, right? Um, when you look at like mental health, right? So why do you think mental health is important for boys and men? If in today's world, right? We look at we look, information age, modern society, social media, internet, right? So yeah, so the first question is like, why do you think mental health is important for boys and men in today's world? And then the follow-up question to that is, um, what would you like to see differently when it comes to boys and men's mental health? So why is it important, and what would you like to see different?
For sure. I mean, my favorite thing is obviously I'm associated with CAMH in a lot of ways. I love their slogan, "Mental health is health," and
Yeah,
I think mental health is important to consider in the equation for everybody, especially for boys and men. I think because of this masculine society, this patriarchy that we live in, where men are discouraged from sharing their feelings and crying or just being open and talking about those kinds of issues, those mental health issues. I think that's why I'm so adamant. Like, if anything, I overshare. I'm like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, like, all the time, and I try and express that through my comedy. That's essentially like my comedy is like literally, instead of journaling, instead of writing down in a journal like here's how I was feeling today, instead I'll just make a joke about something that happened instead, which is my fun way of processing it.
love it.
But yeah, no, I mean mental health is so unbelievably important. I think something that's really cool, the one silver lining of this pandemic is I think is that it's opened up so much more empathy and understanding for mental health, because people who don't necessarily suffer from mental illness like I do, or like tons of people do. I think the statistic is like 1 in 5 people will experience some form of mental health injury in their lives. Uh, but even people who wouldn't otherwise have any sort of neurodivergence experienced, so much isolation and loss, whether it was loss of friends, loss of careers, loss of family members. Just we all collectively lost, the ability to socialize and just do anything, and that's wildly detrimental to everyone's mental health. And so I think there was a lot more understanding, and we definitely have a lot more awareness and a lot more empathy, which I think is fantastic. And this is kind of leading me to that follow-up question: what would I like to see changed? Is now that we've developed all of this empathy and that we have this greater understanding, I think access and funding and just better mental health care all around is so important. Because unfortunately, I mean, and I don't want to get too political here,
Mhm.
but like, I'd say right now, with the current system that we have, there is barely enough
Oh yeah,
resources to take care of people who are actively in crisis, let
yeah.
alone preventative care, where, ongoing preventative care, where it's unfortunate that, like, it literally took me going to the hospital and being hospitalized for 7 weeks because I was in a deeply suicidal, depressive state and was on watch and held in a GPU for 7 weeks to get any sort of ongoing psychiatric care, despite the fact that I had nearly a decade of undiagnosed symptoms before that.
Mhm.
And so that's I think that's the biggest. I mean, and then having worked on the front lines as well as a mental health peer support worker for a community housing nonprofit, like I was bouncing around between multiple sites all over Toronto,
Mhm.
and could just see, and just I mean, just witnessing it firsthand and witnessing it, you know, personally with my own personal stories. Just, yeah, it's just the accessibility is so poor right now that like I mean, and I'm not a politician. I'm not. This isn't what I do, so I've no idea where to start with it,
Mhm.
with all the budgeting and all this. But I just think that the system definitely needs to change in a way that, I think it's awesome. Even going back to peer support, that peer support has really just become more of a mainstream thing.
Mhm.
Uh, I guess for people who might, would it be helpful? Would you like me to describe what peer support
Yeah,
is
yeah.
for
Please,
people who might not know?
please. Yep.
I didn't want to go on like too long of a
Yeah.
tirade.
That's cool.
Uh, but yeah, so peer support is essentially somebody with lived experience, right? So, such as myself, is typically facilitating groups. I mean, the best example I can think of a peer support group would be AA. AA is a perfect example of a peer support group because it's a whole bunch of people with lived experience getting together in a room and sharing their experience, and only that. There's no One of the pillars of peer support is that there's no advice giving. Nobody's a doctor, nobody's a medical professional, nobody's a clinician of any sort. It's just people sharing their life experience, and then if something that happened to me in some way that I dealt with something resonates with you and it's
Mhm.
able to help you in your life, fantastic.
Mhm.
If not, that's also okay too. We're just getting in a room and sharing, because sometimes even just sharing something, sharing your experience to a room of strangers can be very cathartic and powerful and very healing in that sense. I mean, that's why I talk about my mental health in stand-up comedy. It's
Mhm.
incredibly It takes a lot of the power away from some of those traumatic experiences to be able to make a joke about being hospitalized or being on suicide watch or whatever it might be.
Well, that's amazing, man. And yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, I mean, you're totally right. Like the mental health system that we have in Canada today is definitely, needs improvement. I mean, I would say even go as far as saying it needs overhaul. You know what I mean? Like we need more resources dedicated to it, and I think we need to focus more on prevention. And like I think Camille mentioned in the comments here, the system we have today, or most systems are reactive as opposed to proactive, right? And I think we had a phone conversation yesterday that a lot of these things start when we are young. So I think like if I was in a high school or middle school and we had education about it, like that would have been awesome, right? And
Mm-hmm.
uh, and yeah, man, and mental health and comedy, like these are two things that people don't usually think about in the same line, right? So like that's amazing how you're able to merge them together, and it is very powerful that the statement you made that it takes away the power, right? It takes away like it's like, oh, this has power over me, but because you're able to make fun of it or put like a comedy aspect to it, it's like you take control back, because it's in your hand, right? So no, that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing, man. And I think we probably like touched upon this in the previous question, is that how can we help and support our boys and men, as an individual, families, and society. And I think you're already doing a lot of the work, right? But like just in general, like how do you think we can help our boys and men? And actually, just a off tangent, I guess, thing, right? I was reading a study in psychology today, and it said that the boys and men that are being brought up in today's generation are the loneliest that they've ever been, like the least amount of friends, the least amount of support systems, which is funny because like with technology and social media, you would imagine that we would have more connections, but it's actually the opposite. So yeah, how do you think we can help our boys and men?
For sure. I mean, on like the lowest effort amount of way, like the absolute lowest effort way to help is just normalizing conversation about mental health.
Mm,
Just being open and having those conversations, because and they can sometimes be really really difficult. And that's also part of the reason I like the intersection of comedy and mental health, is because it's a very low barrier to entry way to have those conversations. If I go up and I make a joke about being bipolar and somebody else in the crowd identifies with that, they might go talk to somebody about it. Be like, oh my God, I saw this comedian. He talked about such and such. I usually wind up having a conversation with at least 3 or 4 people at the end of every show after talking about doing a lot of mental health related material. So, like, yeah, the first step is just normalizing conversation. We don't talk about mental health anywhere near long enough, or just, yeah, we just don't do it. The same way that you would talk about if you had a cast on your arm, you'd be like,
mm,
hey man, what's with that cast on your arm? Did you break your arm? Are you doing okay? We should be talking the same way about mental health, because mental health literally is health.
mm,
I think I mean, I loved that point that you had just made about there being classes about that, like in the middle school or high school. I think that would be unbelievably interesting and introspective and really 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 helpful, because yeah, getting learning as young as you can about something so incredibly important to your life. I mean, we have health classes. They have health class where they teach you all about your bodies and all the other things.
mm.
I don't really, I don't really, I don't really remember everything that I learned in health class. I think I was in grade 6,
Yeah.
but I'd say, yeah, learning, adding a mental health component to that as well, I think is so unbelievably important. And also, I just want to give one quick shout out to Camille for all those amazing comments that keep popping up. I haven't actually addressed any of them, but they are so well thought out. And when you had pointed out that they'd made that comment about reactivity and not proactivity, that was like spot on, chef's kiss. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. And also, Ryan, when you do these shows, right? So do people like come up to you and like share their stories? And I think that's amazing because like when you talk about it, it does allow people to open up, and share their experiences. Like, oh, I can talk about this stuff. And yeah, we definitely need more of that. But have you had like people come up to you and share their experiences?
Oh God, yeah. Literally every single show, I will
Mm,
have at least a couple of people come up and talk to me after the show.
Mm,
And specifically, there was even one instance where somebody came up and like they were like, "Hey, I just got diagnosed with bipolar like a week ago.
mm,
How do you do what you do? Where are you? How'd you get to be healthy? Because I'm terrified." And we wound up having like an almost an hour long conversation after the show, and that's arguably my favorite part. I like that even more than the performance, than like being up and doing it, because that's just so unbelievably rewarding. Also, I mean, in the class that I teach at through the collaborative learning college at CAMH,
mm,
we're having all these amazing conversations in this class as well, where people are starting to open up about themselves, and again try and process that lived experience through the lens of humor, because it makes it, like I said earlier, it takes some of the power away if you can make a joke about something, and because if you're able to find the humor in something, if you're able to laugh at something, it means that at least some small level of healing has occurred, and I think that's so unbelievably important. But yeah, having conversations with people at the end of every show is hands down one of my favorite things, and I actively encourage it. I usually sometimes end sets by being like, "Hey, if any of this resonated with you, come talk to me after the show."
mm. Awesome, man. That's amazing. Yeah, and I think in the end, it's all about healing and recovery, and it's taking that power back, and and also helping society, right? And I think you're doing an amazing job on that. And the funny thing is, like, I've always wanted to, like, I would always talk to my friends about it. I'm like, hey, man, I want to merge mental health and stand-up comedy because I'm big into stand-up comedy too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to, like, going to your shows or stuff like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting involved myself. So you've motivated me in that regard. So yeah, man, I really appreciate you being on the show and sharing your life journey. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to getting involved as well. And yeah, thanks, man. If there's any like last minute comments you want to make, appreciate that.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, so one, if you're actually interested in getting more involved,
Yes,
the
yeah. If
class
you
that
can
I
share, yeah, if you want to
yeah,
share, like any of your yeah, anything you want to share about your how the people can reach you and knowing more about you.
for sure. So I stuck this little guy up here. So I'm at Ryan Z Comedy on all social media platforms. So you can find me there if you want to, on TikTok, on Instagram. My Instagram is terrible. I'm not very good at Instagram, Facebook, etc. But if you specifically, even you, but anybody listening, if you're interested in classes on mental health and comedy, uh, registration is pretty limited, but we are hoping to offer more classes, hopefully starting in October. The current class that I'm teaching in the Collaborative Learning College is full, but I'm hoping to run multiple iterations of it, and that'll be through the Collaborative Learning College at CAMH. Also, one big, really, really, really cool thing that I'm super excited to share, in regards to the show that you mentioned right at the top, that I actually organize a and produce a mental health themed comedy showcase with tons of professional comedians, all mental health content for the most part, uh, and all the funds go to support the CAMH Foundation. And right now, I'm actually going to be spotlighted at the end at the Paradise Theater on September 22nd. There's a big, huge showcase there happening. It's called the Vong Show, because named after Vong Show, the star of the show, and he's putting it all together. He's absolutely amazing. He's phenomenal, and and he's bringing all of Canada's best comedians for this massive showcase at the Paradise Theater in Toronto. I think the address is 1006 Bloor Street West. And then at the end of it, he's actually taken on a couple of cool show producers such as myself and others, and we're all going to have a little bit of time to spotlight that. And the goal is to eventually run that show that I've been doing on a much smaller indie scale in like cafes and bars raising money, to turn it into a larger theatrical production, and really and just raise as much money and as much awareness as possible. And yeah, and obviously the show is called Mental Health.
Yeah.
Hellth, because I am a sucker for a good pun.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, when I saw that, I had a big chuckle. I'm like, oh, that's pretty. That's awesome. All right, thanks so much, Ryan. Okay, everyone. So in closing, I just want to make a few announcements. We have a few live shows coming up. So Open Up is one of our shows. Sharing your personal life journey. It's a live talk show on Sunday at 10 a.m. EST. We have Lily. It's a Tamil live talk show on Sundays at 8 a.m. EST. We have our monthly webinar, which is on first Saturday of every month at 10 a.m. EST. We bring expertise in organizations and discuss a particular topic each time. We have our monthly special show, The Unspoken Tears. And this basically is on second Saturday of every month from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. The focus is on domestic violence against men, bullying, male sexual abuse, traumas, porn addictions, and human trafficking. Then we have our author circle. We want to bring individuals who have been contributing to the well-being of boys and men through writings, articles, media, and also recognize them and appreciate them. This happens on third Saturday of every month from 11 to 12 p.m. 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. EST. We also have our podcast. So all of our shows are available on all platforms, including iPhone, Google Play, and so on. We also have our monthly men's group meeting, only for men and by men. It's every 2 weeks on Tuesdays from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. through Zoom. The next one will be on Tuesday, September 6th. This is a private meeting, so there will be no recordings. Please join through Zoom, and the link is available on our Facebook group and Facebook page. And lastly, we have our Pass the Talking Stick show. This is an indigenous peer-to-peer support group. Again, as we come to the close of the show, there are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups. All walks of life can participate in any of our shows. If you want to be a guest on any of our shows or willing to be part of our organization and help us directly or indirectly, please reach out to us. We would love to work with individuals, professionals, expert community organizations, corporations, government officials, and businesses, or any other associations. Our phone number is 437-889-8329. Our email is info@voiceofman360.org. Our website is voiceofman360.org. And you can find us on all the social media platforms, including Facebook. You can join our group so you can see our daily activities, and please invite your friends and families as well. And you can also find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Voice of Men 360. We want to reach out to more people and help the community. Please continue your support, and thank you very much for joining our show.
Hey Ryan, what's
How's it
going on, man?
going?
Good. So, any feedback, anything from your side?
That was great. That was awesome. I felt bad. I thought this green screeny thing was gonna work better. Like you couldn't see any of
No,
my hands, and I was like, oh no. It
you,
normally works so much better than that. Because I was
you,
like, oh, I have this cool background that I do when I do like Zoom comedy. Sometimes I do like corporate Zoom comedy, or like I did a show for like McMaster's Mental Health Week, like
yeah, see,
a little bit ago.
here's
Oh,
the,
we're live. Are we supposed to be live?
oh, sure.